Hello friends, many times doctors are presented with the patients who complain of fever, cough, cold, running nose, vomiting or diarrhea, abdominal pain, skin rashes and itching. These are all common symptoms of any type of infection or worm infestations like fever, cough and cold are example of some viral infections or even bacterial infections, and vomiting and diarrhea is an example of usual in cases of cholera or typhoid. Abdominal pain and skin rashes are usually found in worm infestations. Now to find out which type of infection is present, whether it is bacterial infection, viral infection, or whether it is a worm infestation, that is done by differential leukocyte count. Heck, even the coronavirus, the detection of the coronavirus can also be done through differential leukocyte count. There is one method known as NLR, that is neutrophil lymphocyte ratio. This is commonly nowadays used to find out the severity of coronavirus infection. So that is the importance of differential count. So today we'll discuss about the differential count. So let's start with it. So differential leukocyte count, also known as DLC or DC or differential count of WBC. These all names are same, that is differential leukocyte count. Today we'll discuss about the introduction, what are the indications, how to make and stain the smear, and identification and counting of WBCs. So if you remember peripheral smear, I hope that most of the students have already done the peripheral smear. If not, please go and watch the video of peripheral smear first. So what is differential leukocyte count? It is just an extension of peripheral smear. So if you know peripheral smear, just an extension of that is the differential leukocyte count. So without wasting time, I am Dr. Gitesh Dubal. Let's start with today's practical, that is differential leukocyte count. So differential count is done after preparing the peripheral smear. So first you have to do a peripheral smear, then after that we have to count 100 WBCs in that peripheral smear, and from that we have to find out the percentage of each WBCs. So that is known as differential leukocyte count. So you have to do a peripheral smear, then count 100 WBCs in the peripheral smear, and then out of that 100, how many percentage of each WBC is present, that is the differential leukocyte count. Like for the DLC, normal DLC values or normal differential count values, neutrophil usually are 60 to 70%. That means out of 100 WBCs, 60 to 70 will be neutrophils. Out of 100 WBCs, 20 to 30 will be lymphocytes. Out of 100, 2 to 6 will be monocytes and 2 to 4% will be eosinophils, while basophils are usually 0 or in very rare cases 1 or 2. So that is why it is 0 to 0.15 percentage. So this is the distribution of the WBCs usually in the normal person. So this, if you know the normal values, we can find out the abnormality. So you have to remember these normal values, then only you can find out the abnormality in any patient. So let's move to the next section. So what are the indication of differential leukocyte count? Now what do you mean by indications? Indication means the conditions where the differential leukocyte count is to be prescribed to a patient. So what are the medical conditions? Any medical condition where you want to find out whether the WBC percentage can be altered. As I said, in cases of infection or infestations, the WBC count, not only the count will be altered, but the percentage may also be altered. So with or without change in the WBC count, if the percentage of WBC is altered, then in that condition DLC is to be prescribed. So depending on that, various conditions can be found. Number one is neutrophilia. Now remember the word philia. Wherever the philia term is used, that means it is increase. So neutrophilia means increase in neutrophil count. So that is why it is known as neutrophilia. So whenever in WBC, if the count percentage of WBC is more in neutrophils, so if the neutrophils are more compared to the lymphocytes and other WBCs, then it is known as neutrophilia. When it is present, physiologically it is present when the person does exercise, during pregnancy, menstruation and lactation. But pathologically it is found in pyogenic infection. This is the most important thing. In any bacterial infection, if there is a bacterial infection to the patient, neutrophilia will be there. This is very important because the management of the patient will vary whether it is bacterial or viral. Only in bacterial infection we give antibiotics. In viral infection, we don't give antibiotics because antibiotics are for bacteria. So in case of neutrophilia, the bacterial infection is present. So if there is a neutrophilia in a patient, that means the person is suffering from bacterial infection, not viral. Okay, if there is a tissue destruction, then also neutrophilia will be there, and epinephrine injection. But the most important thing is bacterial infection. Remember this thing, this is most the practical thing. In neutrophilia, there is bacterial infection. Now what is neutropenia? Wherever the penia term is used, that means there is decrease in the neutrophil count or any WBC count. If the count is decreased, it is the term used is penia. Okay. So neutropenia means decrease in neutrophil count. So percentage of neutrophil will decrease compared to others. Which are the conditions? So physiologically it is found in children. Okay, children naturally have decrease in neutrophil count. But pathologically it is found in viral infection. This is very important. In viral infection, neutrophil count will decrease. Okay. Another most important condition is typhoid. Now this is the single most criteria to identify typhoid. If the person is having diarrhea and vomiting and the neutrophil count is less, there are high chances that person is suffering from typhoid. You can do Vidal test also, but usually we get an indication that the person is suffering from typhoid if the person is having neutropenia with abdominal pain, diarrhea and vomiting. If there is a bone marrow depression, then also the neutrophil count naturally will decrease. So these are the conditions, but most important is viral infection and typhoid. So neutropenia is found in viral infection and typhoid. Remember these things. Next is eosinophilia. As I said, the philia means increase in count. So here the eosinophil percentage is increased, the count of eosinophil is increased, so that is why it is known as eosinophilia. Eosinophil represents allergic condition. So eosinophilia naturally will be found in allergic conditions. So any allergic condition, whether it is bronchial asthma or even worm infestations like parasitic infestation or skin diseases, they are usually because of allergic conditions. In these conditions, eosinophilia will be present in the patient. So if you are suspecting the patient is having fever because of allergy, then do the DLC. If there is eosinophilia, that means the person is having some allergic reaction. So usually allergic reaction will represent eosinophilia. Then eosinopenia. Penia means decrease in count. So here the eosinophil count will decrease compared to other WBC. That is why eosinopenia. Only one condition you need to remember, that is steroid injection. So if steroids are given, or if there is an increase in steroid in disease like Cushing syndrome. So if steroids are either given or there is a disease where the steroids are more, then eosinopenia will be there. The reason is because corticosteroid decrease the eosinophil count. Remember this, that corticosteroids decreases the inflammation. They also decrease the allergic reactions. So eosinopenia is commonly found where there is a steroid injection is given or there is increase in steroid like in disease of Cushing syndrome. So these are some of the conditions. Let's see the other conditions. So another condition is lymphocytosis. So again, cytosis term is used when there is increase in count. Cytosis means increase in count. So when the lymphocytes are increased, the percentage of lymphocyte is more, then it is known as lymphocytosis. Now physiological it is found in children, but most important is pathological. In viral infections, lymphocytosis is present. So remember, if there is a person is suffering from viral infection, there will be lymphocytosis and neutropenia. Okay, if these two conditions are present, the decrease in neutrophil count is there and increase in lymphocyte count is there, that means the person is suffering from viral infection, not bacterial infection. If there is bacterial infection, neutrophil count will be more. So this is how we differentiate between viral and bacterial infection. Viral infections in most of the cases is self-limiting except corona. So that is viral infection. Then chronic infections, if the person is having chronic infection, then also lymphocytosis will be there. If there is a blood cancer like lymphocytic leukemia, then also lymphocytosis will be there. So these are the conditions where lymphocytosis is there. Most important is viral infections. In viral infections, lymphocyte count will increase. The reason is lymphocytes destroy the viruses while neutrophil destroys the bacteria. So that is why lymphocyte count increases in viral infections while neutrophil count increases in bacterial infections. Then lymphopenia means decrease in lymphocyte count. Here the lymphocyte count decreases compared to other WBCs. That is why it is known as lymphopenia. It is found in acquired immunodeficiency syndrome or AIDS and hypoplastic bone marrow. So if there is a decreased production in the bone marrow, then naturally the lymphopenia will be there. So these are the conditions of lymphopenia. Then monocytosis means there is increase in monocyte count, that is known as monocytosis. Now this is particularly found in tuberculosis. You suspect the patient is having coughing for more than 3 months, and if you do DLC, if there is monocytosis, there are higher chances the person is suffering from tuberculosis. So tuberculosis indication is monocytosis. Similarly in syphilis also there is monocytosis, and in some other cases of leukemias also monocytosis will be found, but most important is tuberculosis. In tuberculosis monocytosis is common. Then monocytopenia, that means decrease in monocyte count. Penia means decrease. So decrease in monocyte count is known as monocytopenia. Again it is found in hypoplastic bone marrow. Hypo means decrease functioning. Plastic means production. So decreased production of bone marrow, WBCs is there, then it is monocytopenia. Now if you remember, I said about the coronavirus, that is NLR ratio is there, that is neutrophil lymphocyte ratio. Now this is very commonly used in coronavirus infection in recently. So some of the examiner may ask question regarding that. So neutrophil lymphocyte ratio represents NLR. So what is the ratio? If the ratio is less than 3.5, it is good. If the person is suffering from coronavirus, the RT-PCR test is done, the patient is having RT-PCR positive. Now you want to find out whether person is having mild, moderate or severe infection. Then in that case NLR ratio is very important. If the NLR ratio is less than 3.5, the person is having good condition, that means the person is having mild coronavirus infection. If the NLR ratio is between 3.5 to 4.0, the person need to be cautious, because the situation can get worsen. So the person might be having mild to moderate infection, but if it is more than 4.0, that means the person need to be hospitalized, okay, because the chances that person will have moderate to severe coronavirus infection. So that is why NLR ratio is now commonly used to find out the severity of coronavirus infection. So this is for the viva point of view. Now let's move to the next slide. So the procedure of making peripheral smear, as I said, we have to first make the peripheral smear and then we have to count the 100 WBCs. So what are the requirements of making the peripheral smear? What is the actual process of making peripheral smear? And then how we have to identify the various blood cells, that is WBCs, RBCs and platelets. So these are the steps of procedure of making peripheral smear. So what are the requirements? Naturally compound light microscope, 4 to 5 slides, the blower, lancet, distilled water, Leishman stain and liquid paraffin or cedar wood oil is required. Okay, so these are the requirements for making peripheral smear. Then Leishman stain, this is a viva question. What are the contents of Leishman stain? This is a stain that is used for staining the blood cells. So there are three contents. First is leucine. Leucine is the acidic dye. So naturally it will stain the basic structures. Which are the basic structure in the cell? That is the granules in the cytoplasm. So granules in the cytoplasm are basic structures. So leucine will stain the granules. Then methylene blue. Methylene blue itself is basic dye. So it will naturally stain the acidic structure. What are the acidic structure in the cell? That is the nucleus, because nucleus contains DNA and RNA. What is the full form of DNA? Deoxyribonucleic acid. Then RNA, ribonucleic acid. So both are acids. So DNA and RNA will be stained by methylene blue. Then acetone free methyl alcohol. Now this is the content that is used for fixing of the blood smear on the glass slide. So if you make the blood smear, it need to be stick on the glass slide. That is done by methyl alcohol. But this methyl alcohol is not just methyl alcohol, it is acetone free. Okay, the acetone is removed from the solution and then it is mixed with leucine and methylene blue. So these are the content of Leishman stain. So what is the actual process of making peripheral smear? First we have to make the smear, then we have to stain the smear, then we have to examine under the microscope. So first making the smear, then staining the smear and then examining under the microscope. So these are the three steps of making peripheral smear. So what is the procedure of making the smear? First we have to clean and dry the slides. So you have to take 4 to 5 slides and then you have to clean them with soap and water and then dry them. After drying and cleaning and rubbing with the cotton cloth, then we have to select the spreader slide. The spreader slide edge should be thin and smooth. So you have to take one slide whose edge is thin and smooth, then only that spreader slide is the perfect one. Then we have to prick the finger. Naturally the non-dominant hand, ring finger, should be used for pricking the finger. Then you have to discard the first drop because there is tissue fluid in the first drop that may dilute the WBC count. So that is why we discard the first drop, allow the second drop to be formed. So when the second drop is formed, then we have to prepare the peripheral smear. So let's see the video. So this is how we have to make the peripheral smear. If you see, first we have to put the drop on one side of the slide, then the spreader slide is used to spread the smear. So spreader slide should be placed on the middle and then pulled backwards, allow it to spread from edge to edge, and then smooth continuous movement should be done. So smooth continuous movement should be done, and the angle that is formed is 35 to 45 degree. So the angle should be between 35 to 45 degree, neither more or less. If it is more, then thin smear may be formed. If it is less, thick smear may be formed. And also the pressure that is applied, that should be kept in mind. If you apply too much pressure, the smear will turn away. If you apply less pressure, thick smear will be formed. So pressure should be moderate one, neither more nor less. So this is how you have to make the smear. Again, you have to pull the spreader back, allow it to spread, and then smooth continuous movement, and a smear will be formed. The ideal smear should be tongue shape. It should be evenly thin and thick. It should be single layer, neither too thick, neither too thin, and there should be no air bubbles. So this is how you have to make the smear. So now after making the smear, we have to stain the smear. So what are the steps? Number one, dry the smear. So the smear that you have formed need to be dried first. It should be completely dried. Not a single wet spot should be found on the smear. After completely drying the smear, then we have to place the slide on the rack. The rack that is provided to you, you should place the slide on the rack. Then you have to add 8 to 10 drops of Leishman stain over the whole slide. Need not to count exactly 8 to 10 drops, but at least that much amount of Leishman stain should be given that it covers the whole smear. So you have to cover the whole smear. If it is in 8 to 10 drops, good. If it requires more drops, then it is okay, because this 8 to 10 drops will vary from bottle to bottle. So remember that you have to cover the whole smear, not the slide but the smear. But it should not be less. Then wait for 2 minutes. After adding Leishman stain, we have to wait for 2 minutes. This 2 minutes time is known as fixation time. It is not the staining time. Here the methyl alcohol will fix the smear on the glass slide, but no staining will happen. So this waiting of 2 minutes is the fixation time. Then add 8 to 10 drops of distilled water. Here also we have to add sufficient amount of distilled water so that it covers the whole slide. Okay, so it need not be always 8 to 10 drops. It will vary from bottle to bottle, but at least sufficient amount of distilled water that it covers the whole slide. Not too much, not too less. Okay, so add distilled water after waiting for 2 minutes. Then we have to wait for 10 minutes. This 10 minutes is known as staining time, because it is this time during which the staining occurs. So now leucine and methylene blue will enter the cell and will stain the cells. So the 10 minutes is known as the staining time, because staining occurs during this period. Then during this 10 minutes we have to blow air with the blower. If you remember, blower was there. We have to blow air onto the slide so that Leishman stain and distilled water are sufficiently mixed together. When they mix together, then only the staining will happen. So that is why we have to blow intermittently to the slide. Then after 10 minutes we have to wash the slide with the tap water from the edge, not directly on the smear. If you allow the tap water directly to fall on the smear will wash away. So you need to keep in mind that the tap water should be falling on the edge of the slide, not on the smear. And then clean and dry the slide. You have to clean the back side of the slide, not the slide portion where the smear is there, but the other side of the slide where the smear is not there. You have to clean with the cotton and then dry the slide. You have to completely dry the slide before examining under the microscope. So these are the steps. Dry the smear, place the slide on the rack, add 8 to 10 drops of Leishman stain on the whole slide, wait for 2 minutes, this is the fixation time, then add 8 to 10 drops of distilled water, then wait for 10 minutes, this is the staining time. During this 10 minutes we have to blow air intermittently with the blower and onto the slide where Leishman stain and distilled water will mix. Then after 10 minutes we have to wash the slide with the tap water from the edge, then clean the slide and then dry the slide. So these are the steps of staining the smear. Now let's watch the video of how to stain the smear. So first of all, thanks to Medical Lab Diagnostic Dinesh who provided this video. Now let's start with the video. So this is a Leishman stain. We have to add Leishman stain onto the smear. As you can see, 8 to 10 drops sufficiently to cover the smear on the rack. Then we have to wait for 2 minutes. This 2 minutes is the fixation time, not the staining time. So in this 2 minutes, fixation of the smear will happen on the glass slide. Then after 2 minutes, we have to add distilled water. So now 8 to 10 drops of distilled water is added. This distilled water need to be sufficiently to cover the whole slide. Okay. So minimum 8 to 10 drops. And then we have to blow air intermittently with the blower. Here they are using a bulb, but we have to use a blower for blowing. We have to use intermittently, not continuously. Then we have to wait for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, we have to wash the slide under the tap water from the edge, not directly on the smear. So from the edge, we have to wash it, then clean it from the back side with the cotton like this, and then we have to dry it. We can put it on the rack like this, or we can shake the slide to dry it. So this is how we have to do the staining of the smear. Now after the smear is been stained, then we have to dry it, and under the microscope first we have to observe in 10x to find out the best area where the RBCs are separated, then focus that area in 45x, and then change to 100x by using cedar wood oil. So we have to apply cedar wood oil or liquid paraffin drop on the slide, and then 100x lens is used for focusing the cells. So how to identify the blood cells? Now basically there are 3 types of blood cells. One is RBCs. They are non-nucleated and they are all over the view field. So whenever you observe the peripheral smear, what you see maximum amount are the RBCs. So they are non-nucleated and all over the view field. Then WBCs, there is a 3-step approach for identification which type of WBC is present. We'll just come into the next slide. Then comes the platelets. They are the small purple colored dots which are present in groups. So usually purple colored dots in groups are the platelets. So these 3 types of blood cells are present, but most important are the WBCs. But let's first find out the RBCs and platelets and remove from our mind. Okay, so this slide, this view field shows that these are the RBCs. So these red circles are the RBCs and these purple dots are the platelets. So purple dots very small, 2 microns, 1 to 2 microns in size, and in groups are the platelets, and 7 micron size circular red circles are the RBCs. So RBCs and platelets are out of question. Now let's move to the WBCs. How to identify various types of WBCs. So identification of WBCs is done with a 3-step approach. Okay, we follow 3 steps. If you follow these 3 steps, you will easily identify any WBC. There are basically 5 types of WBCs. These are neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils, lymphocytes and monocytes. So to find out these 5 types of WBCs, 3-step approach is there. First is we have to see the cell size. First you have to remember that any nucleated cell is WBC in peripheral smear. Okay, if it is a nucleated cell, find out the cell size. Then see the nucleus of that WBC or that cell, and then find out the cytoplasm and granules. So if you follow this 3 steps approach, you will easily identify the WBC. First you see the cell size, then the nucleus, and then the cytoplasm and granules. One by one we will find out the importance of each step in the next slide. So first the cell size. So cell size, how to measure it, because they are very small. So we can use the help of RBCs. So we have to compare the size of WBC with the RBC. Because we know the size of RBC, it is usually 7 microns. So if we know the size of RBC, we can know the size of WBC. So we have to compare with the RBC. So if the WBC size is equal to RBC, if it is nearly equal to RBC, that means the WBC size is 7 microns, that is same as RBC. Only one WBC is equal to RBC, that is small lymphocytes. So if you find any WBC, any nucleated cell which is having the size equal to RBC, that means it is small lymphocyte. No other WBC is equal to RBC. So if it is equal to RBC, it is small lymphocyte. Now if it is 2 times that of RBC, that means the size of the WBC is equal to 2 RBC. That means the size of WBC is 14 microns. 7 into 2 is 14 microns. Then all the granulocyte, that is basophil, eosinophil and neutrophil, they all have 14 micron size. Even the large lymphocyte can have 14 micron size. So it may be a granulocyte or it may be large lymphocyte. So if it is equal to 2 times the RBC, it may be a granulocyte or large lymphocyte. If it is 3 times the RBC, that means it is so large that it is equal to 3 RBC. That means the size of the WBC is between 18 to 21 microns. Then it is only monocyte. Monocyte is the largest WBC, Viva question. Why? Because the size of monocyte is 3 times that of RBC, that is 18 to 21 microns. That is why any largest WBC is a monocyte. So if any WBC is 3 times the RBC, it is monocyte only. Now let's move to the next approach. Second step we have to see is the cell nucleus. So cell nucleus, in the cell nucleus we will see whether lobulations is present or not, and if it is present, the number of lobes. What is lobulations? It is the clunkiness or collection of the DNA groups, and in between there is a thread connecting it. So that is the lobulations. If there is no lobulations, then it is okay. If there are lobulations, we have to count the number of lobes. So if it is non-lobulated, like in this case, here there is no lobulation because there is no connecting thread in the nucleus. So there is non-lobulated nucleus. If there is no connecting thread, single bunch of DNA is there, it is agranulocyte. So if any WBC does not have a connecting thread in the nucleus, that means it is a agranulocyte. That means it is either lymphocyte or it is a monocyte. So any non-lobulated WBC is agranulocyte, that means lymphocyte or monocyte, either of them. If it is having 2 lobes, if you see in this diagram, there are 2 lobes are there and there is a connection between them, connecting thread is present between them. So 2 bunch of DNA connected by a thin thread, that means 2 lobes are present. If 2 lobes are present, then it may be any granulocyte, that means it may be basophil, eosinophil or neutrophil. So if there are 2 lobes are present, it can be any granulocyte. If there are 3 or more than 3 lobes are present, as you can see in this diagram, there are 3 lobes are there, 1, 2 and 3. In this diagram, there are 4 lobes are there, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So if there are 3 or more than 3 lobes are present, then it is a neutrophil only. So if any lobulated WBC is there, if you find 3 lobes or more than 3 lobes, then it is a neutrophil only. So this is how you have to remember. If it is a non-lobulated, it is agranulocyte. If there are bilobes are there, then it is a granulocyte. If there are 3 or more than 3 lobes are there, then it is neutrophil only. Now let's move to the third step. So third step is cytoplasm and granules. So we have to look into the cytoplasm and particularly we have to look into the granules. So we have to find out the color of the granules. First we have to see whether granules are present or not, and then if granules are present, we have to find out the color of the granules. So first of all, if there are no granules in the cytoplasm, if you see in the cytoplasm there are no granules, clear cytoplasm and less amount than nucleus is present, then it is a agranulocyte. Name itself suggests agranulocyte, that means there are no granules in this WBC, that is why it is called agranulocyte. That is lymphocyte and monocyte. So lymphocyte and monocyte does not have any granules, that is why they are known as agranulocytes. Now if there are granules are there, then we have to look for the color of the granules. If they are brick red in color, in this diagram you can see they are brick red in color and large coarse granules are present. So brick red, large coarse granules are present, that means it is eosinophil. Why it is called eosinophil? Because this brick red color is given by the eosin stain, that is why it is known as eosinophil. So eosinophil WBC has brick red large coarse granules. If pink color granules are present, in this diagram you can see pink colors, fine small granules are present because it is stained by eosin and methylene blue both, that is why it is pink in color. So pink color fine granules are present, that means it is neutrophil. So if there are pink fine granules are present, that means it is neutrophil. if coarse blue granules are present, very large blue granules are present which are covering the nucleus, you cannot even see the nucleus, that means it is basophil. Why? Because it is stained by methylene blue. So methylene blue stains the granules, that is why they are blue in colors and they are so big that they cover the nucleus, and even the nucleus is not visible. So basophils are having coarse blue granules and even the nucleus is not visible. So this is how you identify the various types of WBCs. Now let's find the difference between the large lymphocyte and monocyte in the next slide. Now sometimes what happens that large lymphocyte and monocyte both may be confused between them because both are very big. So that may be a confusion of what type of WBC is present, whether it is a large lymphocyte or a monocyte. So how to differentiate? First difference is the size, that is the large lymphocyte is 2 times that of RBC while monocyte is very big, that is 3 times that of RBC. But the most important difference that we have found practically is that the large lymphocyte have very small amount of cytoplasm on the periphery. Very thin rim of cytoplasm is present on the periphery. You can see this is a big nucleus is present, this purple one, and blue color cytoplasm is present. So very thin rim of cytoplasm is present in large lymphocyte. While in case of monocyte, there is 50% of that is that of cytoplasm. So if you find very big WBC, but 50% that is cytoplasm, that means it is a monocyte. But only thin rim is present, then it is a large lymphocyte. This is the major difference between the large lymphocyte and monocyte. Another third difference is round nucleus. If the nucleus is round, it is large lymphocyte. If it is bean shaped or kidney shaped, then it is a monocyte. But this shape of nucleus is not very important because when you make a smear, there are chances that the kidney shaped nucleus may become round. So that is why this is not given much importance, but in majority of cases kidney shaped nucleus is monocyte, circular nucleus is large lymphocyte. But the main difference is the cytoplasm. If there is less cytoplasm, it is large lymphocyte. If there is more cytoplasm, it is a monocyte. So these are the difference between the large lymphocyte and monocyte. So what is the distribution of various WBCs in the whole smear? Now the distribution is not a actual representation in most of the cases, but if there is an ideal case scenario, normal case scenario, this representation of the WBCs will be present. Okay. Now large lymphocyte and monocyte usually found in the head region of the smear. The granulocytes are found in the body region of the smear, and small lymphocytes are usually found in the tail region of the smear. But this is not present in every case scenario. Remember this. This is just a representation in some of the case scenarios. Why this is happening? It is logical because large lymphocytes and monocytes are heavy, so they will settle first. Then granulocytes are less heavier than large lymphocyte and monocytes, so they will settle in the body, and small lymphocytes are the smallest, so they are very light, so they will be carried forward to the end of the smear. So that is why they are present in the tail. But again I will repeat, this is not present in each and every case. This is just a representation of normal case scenario. But this will give just a guideline to find out various WBCs in various portions of peripheral smear. So after knowing how to identify various WBCs, then you have to draw 10 by 10 table like this in your answer sheet. Okay, and then you have to focus on one view field of the peripheral smear. Preferably start with the tail region, which is the best one. Then you have to move towards the head region in a zigzag pattern. Okay, now this 10 by 10 table, you have to write down the name of the WBC that you have to identify. If it is a small lymphocyte, write down SL. If it is large lymphocyte, write down LL. If you identify it is a monocyte, then write down M. If it is a neutrophil, write down N. If it is eosinophil, write down E. If it is basophil, write down B. So in similar sequence, you have to fill up the 10 by 10 table. You have to identify the WBC in your smear, and according to the type of WBC, you have to write down in the peripheral smear. And you have to count 100 cell because 10 by 10 is 100. So once you complete the 10 by 10 table, there will be total 100 WBC present in the peripheral smear. Then you have to count how many neutrophil were present in your peripheral smear. So if there were 67, then write down N is equal to 67%. If the lymphocyte, that is both small and large, both lymphocyte in total were 22, then you have to write down 22%. If monocyte were 6, write down 6%. If eosinophil were 5, then write down 5. If there were no basophil, then write down 0. So this is the differential count of your peripheral smear. So this is how you have to do the practical. So you have to draw 10 by 10 table and then focus on one area, particularly start with the tail region and then go parallel or horizontally, then go downwards and in zigzag pattern complete the whole smear and count 100 WBCs and write down their name in 10 by 10 table, and then find out the total number in each WBC type, that is neutrophil, lymphocyte, monocyte, eosinophil and basophil, and this is your differential leukocyte count. So this is the differential leukocyte count of your peripheral smear. So finally summarizing the whole practical, first, indications means which are the conditions where differential count is done. The conditions are when you suspect any change in WBC distribution. That means you are suspecting any infection or infestation, but you want to find out which type of infection is present, whether it is bacterial, viral or it is a worm infestation. Now that can be found out with the differential count. So if you want to find out whether the person is having a viral, bacterial or worm infestation, then differential leukocyte count is indicated. Then making the smear. So how to make the smear? We have to prick the finger, then we have to make the peripheral smear, then we have to stain the smear by adding Leishman stain and then distill water. Then we have to identify the WBCs and then count the WBCs. So WBCs are identified using 3-step approach. Total 100 WBCs are counted and they are represented in percentage. This is the differential count practical. So I hope you understand the whole practical. So thank you very much for patiently listening to me. If any of your queries, please write down in the comment section below. I am Dr. Kitesh Dubal. I will try my best to give answers to all of you. So at the end, now let's complete the practical with the Metzel. So today's Metzel is, I am decrease in typhoid, I am common in viral infection, bone marrow depression love me, tell me thy, who am I? Give me the answer of this medical puzzle in the comment section below. So thank you for patiently listening to me. Have a nice day, students.